There's something buried in Adventure Time that was never meant to be found. A pattern hidden across episodes, drawn in symbols you weren't supposed to notice. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The question isn't whether it's there. The question is why the creators went to such lengths to hide it. In the land of Oo, everything is vibrant, colorful, safe, even when it's dangerous. But beneath that candy coating lies the corpse of our world. The Mushroom War didn't just end civilization. It left something behind, something that speaks through the ruins. And if you know where to look, you'll find it watching from the background of nearly every episode. The Ice King's crown. We know its story. Simon Petrikov, archaeologist, finds an ancient artifact, puts it on, loses his mind over centuries, becomes immortal, insane, obsessed. But here's what doesn't add up. The crown didn't just make him crazy. It made him specific. It gave him one singular obsession: princesses. Why princesses? Why that exact delusion? Because the crown remembers. In the episode Holly Jolly Secrets, we see Simon's transformation through old VHS tapes, video diaries of a man watching himself disappear. But freeze any frame from those tapes and look at what's behind him in his apartment, on his walls. There are newspaper clippings, blurred, yes, unfocused. But enhance those images, and you'll see dates from before the Mushroom War, headlines about political tensions, resource wars, and in one frame, visible for exactly 3 seconds, there's a photograph on his desk. A woman in royal attire. Not a princess from a fairy tale. A real person. Someone from our world. From the time before everything ended. The show never mentions her again. Simon never speaks of her. But the crown knows. The crown has always known. It's not making him chase princesses at random. It's making him chase an echo. A ghost of someone who mattered before the world burned. This is where it gets worse. Gunter, the Ice King's penguin. We learn eventually that Gunter is actually Orgolorg, an ancient cosmic entity that tried to overthrow the solar system itself, trapped in the form of a penguin by a primordial force. The Ice King keeps this creature close, calls it by name, treats it like a pet, but he didn't choose that name randomly. In Old Norse mythology, Gunter was the name of a legendary figure tied to death and transformation. The name appears in sagas about the end of worlds, about cycles that repeat, about kings who lose everything. Simon chose that name while he was still human enough to choose, which means some part of him knew. Some fragment of his consciousness recognized what Orgolorg was before the reveal ever happened. He kept an ancient god beast at his side because something in him understood that the crown, the entity, the power wearing his body needed to be watched, contained, balanced by something equally dangerous. But Orgolorg isn't the only cosmic entity hiding in plain sight. The Lich, the last scholar of Golb, an entity that predates existence itself given form by the Mushroom War's final bomb. We're told this is the Lich's origin. That nuclear fire gave birth to ultimate evil. But watch the episode Gold Stars again, when we see the Lich's past, when we see the moment of detonation. There's a shadow in the blast, not cast by the explosion, moving against the light, a shape that exists before the bomb even falls, something waiting in that exact spot, at that exact moment, for the door to open. The Mushroom War didn't create the Lich, it summoned him. And that means someone, somewhere, knew what they were doing. Someone designed that bomb not just to destroy, but to invoke. Finn has nightmares about the comet, visions of past lives. We see him as a butterfly, as a glowing catalyst, as iterations that stretch back to the beginning of time on Earth. The show frames this as reincarnation, as a cycle of heroism. But every single one of Finn's past lives appears at a moment of extinction, the comet that killed the dinosaurs, the catalyst of the Mushroom War. Each version of Finn arrives just before everything ends. He's not a hero reborn, he's a witness, a recorder, something that manifests specifically to observe the end of eras. And if the pattern holds, that means Oo isn't safe. It means the world Finn lives in now is already counting down to its next termination. He's there because the cycle demands it, and he has no idea. Princess Bubblegum created the Candy Kingdom from nothing. She's a genius, a scientist, effectively immortal. She maintains order through surveillance, through control, through occasionally horrifying experiments we glimpse in her laboratory. She's created life, destroyed it, rebuilt it. She keeps the candy people innocent and simple because, as she admits, they're easier to manage that way. But in the episode The Vault, Finn remembers a past life as Shoko, a one-armed girl who betrayed Princess Bubblegum centuries ago. In that memory, Bonnie Belle is already building the Candy Kingdom, already creating subjects, already experimenting with life itself. She's been doing this for hundreds of years at minimum, which means she predates the kingdom. She existed before, during, or immediately after the Mushroom War, and she never speaks about it, never mentions where she came from, never explains what she was doing during the apocalypse while the world tore itself apart. There's a theory, a dark one, that Princess Bubblegum isn't from our world at all, that she's a remnant of a previous cycle, a survivor from an apocalypse before the Mushroom War, something that's been through this before. That's why she knows how to build civilizations from scratch, why she's paranoid about threats, why she understands cosmic danger better than anyone else. She's seen the pattern, she knows how it ends, and she's trying to stop it by controlling everything. Marceline, the Vampire Queen, 2,000 years old. She watched the world end, she survived the aftermath. She knew Simon before he became the Ice King. Her mother was human. Her father is the Lord of the Nightosphere, a literal demon from another dimension. She exists between worlds, between the time before and the time after. In I Remember You, Marceline breaks down when the Ice King doesn't remember her, when he can't recall the man he used to be. But listen to the lyrics of the song she sings. Really listen. I'm gonna save you, but who's gonna save me? She's not talking about saving Simon from the crown. The crown has already won. She's talking about saving him from something else, something she knows is coming, something she's been trying to prevent for centuries. And the question she asks, who's gonna save me, implies that she knows she's in danger too, that whatever's coming doesn't discriminate, that it takes everyone. The Mushroom War itself, we see glimpses, ruined cities, unexploded bombs, skeletons in bunkers. The show treats it as a cautionary tale about nuclear war, about humanity's self-destruction. But examine the ruins carefully. Look at the architecture, the technology. The timeline doesn't match our world. In several episodes, we see computer monitors from before the war. They're advanced, too advanced for the era implied. We see references to genetic engineering, to dimensional science, to experiments with reality itself. The civilization that destroyed itself wasn't just our world 100 years in the future. It was a world that had already opened doors it shouldn't have. They found something, in the permafrost maybe, or deep in the ocean, or at the edge of the solar system. Something old, something that whispered. And when they listened, when they tried to harness it, it taught them how to build the weapons that would summon entities like the Lich when detonated. The Mushroom War was an invocation disguised as a war. Gulb, the embodiment of chaos and disorder, a primordial force that predates time. In the finale, Gulb arrives in U and begins unmaking reality, consuming it, breaking down existence into pure entropy. Betty Groff, Simon's lost love, merges with Gulb to save him, becomes one with chaos itself. But Gulb doesn't speak, doesn't explain, doesn't have motives we can understand. It simply is. And when it touches things, they forget themselves. They dissolve into nothing. There's an implication here that's never stated outright. If Gulb is entropy, and entropy is the natural end state of all systems, then Gulb isn't evil. Gulb is inevitable. Gulb is what happens when the universe runs down, when stories end, when cycles complete. And Betty merged with it, which means she's now part of that inevitability, spread across existence, waiting for the moment when everything finally stops. There's an episode most people forget, the Hall of Egress. Finn enters a mysterious dungeon and becomes trapped in a perception loop. He can't trust his senses, can't tell what's real. Every time he thinks he's escaped, he finds himself back at the beginning. The only way out is to close his eyes, to stop trying to perceive, to surrender to the unknown. When he finally escapes, he's changed. He sees things differently. The episode ends ambiguously, and it's never referenced again. But the Hall of Egress isn't a place, it's a state, a realization. Finn learned something in there, about the nature of his reality, about the fact that he's trapped in a cycle he can't escape by fighting, only by accepting, only by letting go. The show never tells us what he saw in that moment of darkness. In the distant future episodes, we see 1,000 years later. Shermie and Beth explore a world where Finn and Jake are myths, where the Candy Kingdom is ruins, where everything has changed again, another cycle, another rise and fall. But in the wreckage, there's a tape, a video recording, and on it, an old man who looks like Finn says something strange. He says he's going to find a way to break it, to end the pattern. And then the tape cuts to static. No explanation, no follow-up, just the implication that Finn, at the end of his life, understood what he was, what his purpose was, and tried to fight it. We don't know if he succeeded. There's a frame, one single frame in the intro sequence of Adventure Time. It flashes by so quickly you need to slow the footage down to see it. It's been there since season 1, never explained, never acknowledged. It's an eye, not a character's eye, not stylized or cartoonish, a human eye, realistic, staring directly at the viewer. And around it, barely visible, there are symbols. Ancient looking, deliberate. Fans have tried to decode them for years. Some think they're alchemical, some think they're from ancient languages, some think they're completely made up. But one researcher noticed something. The symbols match markings found in caves around the world, real caves, painted by humans tens of thousands of years ago, long before recorded history, before civilization, before we had language as we know it. Symbols that appear in darkness, in places where ancient people went to encounter something beyond themselves. The creators of Adventure Time have never commented on this frame, never acknowledged it exists. When asked directly in interviews, they change the subject, laugh it off, say it's probably just an animation error. But animation errors don't repeat in every version of the intro. Don't persist across remasters and re-releases. Don't appear in the exact same spot, frame perfect, hundreds of times across hundreds of episodes. Someone put it there, on purpose, and they wanted it hidden just well enough that only people looking for it would find it. So here's what we know. Adventure Time is set in a post-apocalyptic world built on the ruins of a civilization that destroyed itself trying to access something it shouldn't have. That apocalypse summoned entities of cosmic power. Those entities are still active, still influencing events, still moving toward an unknown purpose. The main characters are all connected to forces beyond their understanding. An amnesiac wearing an ancient crown, an immortal genius who predates her own kingdom, a vampire who's lived through multiple ends of the world, a demon lord's daughter, and a boy who reincarnates specifically at moments of extinction. They're not random. They're placed, pieces on a board, players in a game that's been running since before humanity existed. And the game isn't over. The show ended. The final episode aired. The characters got their conclusions. But the world of Ooh continues, in comics, in distant future episodes, in spin-offs and references. It persists. Because the cycle isn't finished. Here's the real question, the one the show never asks directly. If Adventure Time is a story about cycles, about patterns that repeat, about the end and rebirth of worlds, then what cycle are we in? How many times has this happened? How many versions of Finn have lived and died? How many Princess Bubblegums have built kingdoms from ash? And if Golb is entropy, if the Lich's ultimate end, if the pattern demands that everything falls apart so it can begin again, then the happy ending we saw wasn't an ending at all. It was an intermission. Simon got his sanity back, Marceline found peace, Bubblegum and Marceline found each other, Finn grew up, Jake died peacefully, BMO became a storyteller for a new generation, everything wrapped up. Everything made sense. But somewhere, in the background of those final images, if you look closely at the sky, at the stars, there's something moving, something vast, something patient. The comet is always coming back. Adventure Time was never just a cartoon about a boy and his dog. It was a story about witnessing, about watching the world end and finding beauty in the ruins, about characters who exist in the space between apocalypses, making meaning in the moments before everything falls apart again. And the most disturbing part? The creators knew exactly what they were doing. They built a mythology about cycles and entropy and cosmic horror, wrapped it in bright colors and silly voices, and broadcast it to children. Why? Maybe because some truths can only be told as fairy tales. Maybe because the best place to hide a message is in plain sight. Or maybe because they wanted to prepare us. To plant seeds in young minds that will grow later, when those minds were old enough to understand what they've been watching all along. A world that ends, that rebuilds, that forgets, that remembers just enough to do it all over again. And if you're watching this now, if you've made it this far, then you're part of it too. You've seen the pattern, you know the symbols. You understand what's hidden in the ruins of Ooh. The question is what you do with that knowledge. Do you forget? Do you pretend it's just a show? Do you close your eyes like Finn in the Hall of Egress and surrender to the unknown? Or do you look closer? Do you find more? Do you keep searching until you understand why the eye in the intro is watching? Because it is watching. It's always been watching. And now that you've seen it, now that you know it's there, you'll never stop wondering what it sees when it looks back at you. Sleep well.